It's not often that you find members of parliament from different political parties in agreement. But on this day, the 30th of June 2020, during Parliament's debate of national public importance on gender-based violence and femicide, they spoke with one voice, acknowledging gender-based violence must fall.
We also need a legislative reinforcement to make sure that perpetrators of violent crimes against women do not get bail. In the aftermath of the merciless killing of Uyinene Mkhwetyana, may her soul rest in peace, President Ramaphosa promised that the cabinet would introduce a legislative amendment to ensure, among other things, that there is no bail for perpetrators of gender-based violence and that the sentences to these offences are tightened.
Violence in all its forms is endemic in South African society. Both sexual and domestic violence are pervasive, and all women live under threat of or experience violence. Patriarchy must be uprooted and eradicated in our society.
Women are giving up because it seems that there is no use in reporting GBV. Men need to listen to us. Women are being chopped up. Pregnant women are being murdered with babies in their bellies. Little children, little girls, are having their vaginas ripped apart and their bodies ripped apart by men who are raping them. This is no longer just a problem in our country. It is indicative that we have a society of psychopaths.
So I think the problem is bigger than just looking at legislation and policy. We need to change the way society thinks.
And I think that the call to men to rise has been made so many times and it has fallen on deaf ears. Women must be empowered to defend themselves, Honourable Chair.
We always shall come here each and every time, rise and repeat the same thing, clap hands and go away. But there is no implementation.
These sentiments echoed by the government.
It must end now with the support from government and society.
To this effect, 3 pieces of legislation are currently before the Justice Committee: the Domestic Violence Amendment Bill, the Criminal Law Amendment Bill, and the Criminal and Related Matters Amendment Bill, described as crucial proposed legislation. Parliament says it hopes the bills will change the landscape in terms of how violence against women is dealt with. And while the bills have largely been welcomed, it is agreed they are not a silver bullet ending the scourge. Stakeholders presenting to the committee during the public hearing process say for this legislation to be effective, entrenched patriarchy and gender dynamics in the country will have to change.
However, there are a couple of things that we need to bear in mind as we work towards implementing them. One being the fact that these bills are only just part of the state's reaction to GBV. There is still a lot of prevention work that needs to accompany these bills in terms of making sure that in the long term we're able to bring down cases before they become cases. And lastly, we know that part of the biggest challenge we have with GBV is the low prosecution rates and access to the criminal justice system, especially through the police.
Parliament also raised its voice this year, calling for an end to the status quo. To mark International Men's Day on the 19th of November, it partnered with the South African National AIDS Council and the Department of Social Development to host a 2-day National Men's Parliament. The Indaba theme was institutionalizing a responsive men's movement. Speakers spoke against the issue of toxic masculinity and how South African men view male-female dynamics. They called on men to be positive role models to the younger generation to break the cycle of violence and to enable boys to become agents of change in tackling GBV.
Men's Day is meant to improve lives. It's to heal scarred, emotionally scarred lives, to seek not just solutions, but to heal minds, help dysfunctional persons, and promote positive male role models. Such actions are badly needed in today's wounded communities, which often reflect distorted and outdated beliefs.
In his Day of Reconciliation message this year, President Cyril Ramaphosa again called for a non-sexist society. Ramaphosa said reconciliation would not be achieved for as long as the women of South Africa live in fear of gender-based violence. He called for the rejection of all forms of chauvinism and patriarchy, calling on men to play a key role in this daily struggle by changing their behavior. According to the 2019-2020 crime statistics, all sexual offences increased by nearly 2%. At the release of these statistics, Police Minister Bheki Cele described sexual offences as a crime terrorizing most households and communities. He said far too often these cases are only brought to light after the victim has died at the hands of the perpetrator. Abra Babia, SABC News, Parliament.